Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being here, and happy you can all join us on a Wednesday. Well, I guess we've been doing Wednesday for a bit now, but again, we're doing the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, 10:30 a.m. each day, so thanks for being here. Folks, we've been talking for a while now about the economy and problems on the horizon. It looks like the recession is here now because the Federal Reserve is going to raise the interest rates. They're talking like 50 to 100 points, which is going to throw us into a recession pretty much no matter how you look at it. And it's going to happen pretty much any day now. Now, this is going to have a pretty big impact. I'm going to be talking about what this will mean exactly. Maybe in future episodes, we'll go into more of the weeds of it. For example, how it's going to affect your mortgage, some tips maybe, but for now I want to talk more about the bigger picture of what's happening with this. We can expect very likely a lot of businesses that are not actually profitable to start going under. So it's going to be a big shakeup for the market, and it's here now. We've been talking for a while. It is now here. Also, the World Economic Forum has a new video out. We've been talking about it for a while. They're proposing a new health pass for COVID-19. All they need is your blood. So I'll be showing you the video that they put out on this. And interesting notes, folks, Californians are fleeing to Mexico because they're trying to escape the high costs in California laws. And at the same time, too, I talked yesterday briefly about Trump's letter to the J6 committee. I'll be showing you that. Brief update as well. I mentioned before we're doing a special feature on January 6th. That has been moved because it was going to be 2 parts. We decided to make them one full documentary. That's going to be out July 1st now. So we moved the release from this Friday to July 1st, so 2 weeks, to basically combine both parts we have into one full feature. So it's more comprehensive. All right, that said, folks, let's jump into the first story for the day, and good seeing you all here. Now, I mentioned the Federal Reserve is moving on interest rates. I'll explain what that means because I know it's like a lot of technical terms. Bear with me as we go through this, but I'll break it down for you all. Now, first of all, let me show you an article on this. This is the New York Post, kind of on the big picture, the main thing happening right here. It says, Wall Street wonders if Fed will take drastic measures to curb inflation. Now, their usage of the word drastic here is pretty accurate. Basically, the government had a choice. They're going to have to let one thing collapse, basically. Are they going to basically make the government itself insolvent, or are they going to collapse the currency, basically? It looks like they're going to collapse the currency, basically. Destroy the economy, basically. So they have 2 main choices. One, do they allow inflation to keep going? Do they allow it to keep going the way it's going? Or do they try to stop it by, throwing the whole country into a recession by raising interest rates? They're raising interest rates is what it looks like they're going to be doing. Let me explain. Now, they're saying here, there's a chance the Federal Reserve, and a lot of people are saying this, I'd say it's beyond just a chance now because they're saying they're going to do it. There's a chance the Federal Reserve could take extreme action to curb rampant inflation, including hiking interest rates by as much as a full percentage point when the central bank meets for 2 days beginning on Tuesday, yesterday, according to analysts. As of last week, the consensus on Wall Street had been that the Fed would increase rates by 50 basis points or 0.5%. But on Monday, multiple news outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and MSNBC, reported there's a distinct possibility that the Fed could boost interest rates by 75 basis points, or 0.75%. As of Tuesday morning, however, a fresh debate was brewing as to whether the central bank may go even further than that, because even that maybe is not enough at this point to save the system from collapsing. Stephen Englander, a top analyst at Stanford Chartered Bank, told Bloomberg there was a 10% chance that Powell, and the head of the Federal Reserve, would have a Volcker moment and opt for the more extreme 100 basis point hike. Now, that's 1%, and let me explain background on that. They're saying in the late 1970s, the Fed chair at the time, Paul Volcker, aggressively hiked interest rates, which tipped the economy into a recession and reduced soaring levels of inflation. So Basically, right now, the national debt is rising much faster than the GDP. We're in more. It basically says the system's on its way to collapse. The GDP is raising at a certain rate. The national debt's raising at a certain rate. The debt has exceeded the GDP, and it's rising at a faster rate than the GDP is. Meaning, basically, America's, at least economically, in the process of collapsing. In order to fix this, they need to fix the inflation. And so the Federal Reserve has a couple choices. Do they basically let the system just keep going as it is and just watch it fall apart? Or do they raise interest rates and try to fix it through a really extreme measure that's going to put a lot of pain on all of us? Now, again, they did this in the 1970s. Many of you know the story on it. Of course, it was pretty bad for the economy at the time. Reagan actually swept in afterwards and changed the system, and things were good for a bit after that. But it says here that basically Powell, at the head of the Federal Reserve, is facing the same dilemma right now. Now, Goldman analysts are warning that a 100-point rate bump would tip the economy into a recession, according to Markets Insider. And it's not even a difficult analysis to make. Not a difficult analysis to make that we're going to have a recession. And pretty much as soon as the Fed makes this decision, you're going to watch a lot of investors respond to it. They're going to get their money out of any unstable asset very quickly and try to get into something more stable. It's here. We've been talking for a while now. Now, I want to break that down a bit more and explain what this actually means, because for a lot of people, interest rates and stuff like this, it's right over the head. It's technical business jargon and investor jargon. So I'll explain that in a bit. First of all, though, folks, we have an advertiser today. That's American Hartford Gold. Thanks to them, we're doing today's episode. So inflation is at its highest level in 40 years, as we were talking about, and getting worse. Interest rates are also skyrocketing and getting worse, and a recession now looms ahead of us, as we just discussed. Caught between runaway inflation and recession, our retirement accounts are in real danger. If you want to protect your future, you can call American Hartford Gold. They can show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying part of your portfolio with physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they'll have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or into your IRA or 401k. They make it easy. They're the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the BBB and thousands of satisfied clients. If you call them right now, they'll give you up to $2,500 on free silver on your first qualifying order, so don't wait. Call them now. That's 877-260-2764. Again, that's 877-260-2764, or you can text Joshua to 65532. And big thanks out to American Hartford Gold for sponsoring today's episode. Now, I want to break down what it means if the Federal Reserve does raise interest rates. Now, let's talk about a few different points on this, like the 75-point one. The 100-point raise is the more extreme one that they're suggesting may happen. The more likely one is 75 points, which would be about 0.75%. There's a great Twitter thread, actually, I read on this that really just explains it really well. And I want to go over this with you all because, frankly, it explains it really well. So let me show you this. It says here, with recent rumors about the possibility of a 75-point, 0.75% interest rate hike, I cannot avoid but feel dread for the future. The next few years will be tough, and there is nothing to help us avoid imminent catastrophe. Pretty much, folks, the Fed actually had a chance to solve this, and they didn't do it. The Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor a reserve, but is allowed to print our money and allowed to basically manage interest rates, had a chance to fix this. They didn't do it, and you can guess on the reason why. Some people would suggest that maybe they wanted to not damage the Biden economy too bad and give Biden some leeway, but frankly, they couldn't fix it, and Biden made it worse. So here we are. This Twitter thread continues. It says, as we all know, the debt to GDP ratio, as I just discussed actually, is at a whopping 129.38%, meaning if the entire country were to liquidate all of its production, we would not be able to pay off the debt. Not only that, but as I mentioned previously, the debt is rising at a higher rate than the GDP. So the debt is pretty much out of control right now. It's increasing rapidly, again at a faster rate than the GDP. And as they mentioned, even if we were to liquidate everything, we would still be in a pretty desperate situation. Now, the government has spent years without a balanced budget or a surplus, which is the reason our debt is so high. This means slower growth, less pay, a scarcity on decent jobs. You get the idea. As the Fed increases interest rates between 0.75 and 1% to even 1.5 to 1.75%, the interest rate on the debt will increase. The government spent a record $5.5 trillion in 2021 with no interest rates. The Fed, of course, was the one controlling the interest rates. Remember, they had these COVID packages, and they were giving money, Democrats, giving money for like gender studies in Pakistan, and looking at endangered fish and buying camel statues in the Middle East, like literally buying camel statues in the Middle East, and giving themselves raises, our congressional representatives, giving themselves massive raises during this time. And of course, they sent us all like, $600 check, I think, at the end of it all, after throwing the whole country into debt. Now, basically, what does this mean, right? They did not have to take taxpayer dollars to pay for the previous blunders. They didn't have to do it. Now, this has been going on for a while and is the reason we have a bloated federal government and a humongous debt. So, what does this mean for the interest rate hike with relation to the budget? Here's where it gets scary. Assuming the budget will again be $5.5 trillion, if interest rates were up by 1%, again, that's the 100-point basis the Fed is talking about, as they are right now, then the government requires an extra $1.9 trillion in interest rates. So he's suggesting again that even the 1% is rough, right? That means that the budget would total $7.4 trillion, and for us to pay those $7.4 trillion taxes, for $7.4 trillion, taxes would have to go up significantly, or programs would have to be cut. Now, knowing the Democrats, who are currently running most of the government, they typically don't like cutting programs, but they love raising taxes. So we can expect them to probably raise taxes or do a hidden tax. Now, the benefit, in terms of corrupt government, the benefit for corrupt government with interest rates and inflation is basically it's a hidden tax. They can take money out of every dollar you spend. And for us, when you pay taxes once a year, you kind of know you're paying taxes, you're giving the government all this money. And, the older I get and the more I know what the government spends their money on, the less and less I enjoy that time of the year. But inflation is a hidden tax. Basically, it means every time, in addition to being taxed normally, every time you spend your dollar, you are being taxed an additional rate. And so, for example, if you buy products and you're paying, let's say, 10% higher prices, that's equivalent to a 10% tax, is the way it works. Or if they were to devalue the currency through, printing new money, which they've been doing, essentially they're cutting, if they were to double the amount of dollars in circulation, they would essentially be cutting the value in half, meaning like a 50% hidden tax as they print more money. That's kind of how the corrupt system works with the Federal Reserve. Now, on this Twitter thread, he continues, now what do we cut facing this issue? Social Security and government-paid healthcare constitute 49% of the debt. 49% of the budget in 2016. I go straight to cut because there is no way Congress increases tax with inflation this high and putting us in a recession even worse than the one we're in right now. So he's suggesting that basically the government may have to cut something because, when you're dealing with price hikes, when you're dealing with companies raising prices, when you're dealing with our issue right now where we have stagflation, when you're dealing with all the problems we're facing all at once, gas prices, everything, there's a ceiling on how much people are able to spend because we only have so much money that we can use for shopping or maybe luxury goods or buying things that are not absolute necessities. A lot of people now, because of the increase in food prices, increase in gas prices, our budget for things that, we don't technically need for like basic survival is becoming smaller. And the companies are faced with a big issue, which of course ties into the whole economy and even taxes for government, because again, the companies have to pay taxes as well, and their sales tax and other things. They finance local governments. Basically, there's a limit on how much people are able to spend. If the companies increase the prices, the companies then basically risk going out of business. Now, basically, a lot of companies have been eating the loss. They've been basically floating on debt. And this is where the things are going to get really bad. Really, this is going to be the first big impact we're going to see as the Fed raises rates, is that these companies that have basically been floating on debt, many of them may collapse. Now, some individuals like Elon Musk tweeted that maybe that's a good thing. He's suggesting let these zombie, not the exact words, but basically let these zombie companies die. So we are going to watch probably some big corporations just, collapse overnight. Maybe not overnight, but pretty quick here, which is it's going to affect investors, and of course Wall Street's going to freak out, and you're going to watch that whole thing all over again. Let me go further into this, though, because the government is faced with that crisis, some of which is going to be unavoidable. Now, they can minimize that crisis by cutting some government spending, and for Democrats, that's going to be a hard bet, because what do they decide to cut? Now, Democrats are typically in favor of cutting military budgets, but will they do that at a time when China's threatening war with Taiwan, Russia already has a war, we're sending a lot of money to Ukraine, Iran is threatening now to start a war with Israel, to the point where Israel is actually pulling people out of Istanbul. And you have other crises like this. Can they cut the defense budget right now? Probably not, especially not as the nation is focused on that. So what do they cut? Social Security, Health and Human Services, these things. But of course, that also ties into the whole COVID agenda and everything they have going with that. It's going to be rough for them. What do they cut? Now, on this Twitter thread, let me continue on this. It says, why not print, one question people might have is, why not print a bit more money so we can cover the interest rate hike? Well, that is how we got inflation in the first place. And that would also negate the effect of what the Fed is trying to do right now. That is not even addressing the fact that inflation is at already 8.6%. And if we want to fight it, then we need a 12 to 15% interest rate. Back in the 1980s, as we mentioned earlier, the 1970s, but to the 80s, the Fed actually rose interest rates 20% to fight a 14% inflation. And that is assuming inflation really is at 8.6%, which it's not. It's actually higher than that technically. Now, if for the sake of argument we get 12% interest rates, the debt Congress has to pay would still be $22.8 trillion, or something close, still not even reaching it, something close to our $23.56 trillion GDP. And they cannot print more money because that is the cause of inflation. So they can no longer print more money to buy themselves out of the crisis. The individual is saying he feels truly scared. There are no tools to come out of this one without feeling some pain, basically. We get into one of the ugliest recession/depression in a generation, maybe ever, destroying the USD, the US dollar, or we inflate our currency and also destroy the USD, the dollar. So get ready for the new depression, folks. There's no nice way of putting it. Get ready for it because it's here. Now, on that note, Bloomberg is posting this article. Let me show you this. This is Bloomberg News. Have a little sympathy for the Federal Reserve, the half-private run company that is neither federal nor a reserve, established by many individuals, including the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds through their representative Warburg, and many other people, J.P. Morgan and others, who, thanks to the sinking of the Titanic and the death of the senators who were blocking the bill, which one of the individuals on the thing actually owned, they were able to pass and basically let the banks bail themselves out of crisis, which let them give really risky loans and eliminated any kind of accountability on banks and the loan system. Banks no longer, thanks to the Federal Reserve, have any incentive to ensure that people can pay back debts. And so they can give predatory loans, they can do risky investments. And when they fail, which they often do, they offset that. They bail themselves out and pay the banks themselves by printing more money or raising interest rates and screwing over every taxpayer and, well, every person in the country, whether you pay taxes or not, because the money in your pocket, that's a Federal Reserve note. In my opinion, one of the most corrupt systems in the United States, one of the most corrupt systems in the world. Book I highly recommend reading on this, actually, if you haven't read it, is Creature from Jekyll Island. And it's kind of a slighted strike at the Federal Reserve because the place where it was negotiated was a place called Jekyll Island. Highly recommend it. It's really good. It's written like a mystery novel. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. Now, on this note, people are wondering where else to put their money, and we're seeing other collapses take place. One of the big ones is cryptocurrency. Let me show you this. Then we'll jump over to Epic TV after this, but I want to show you this first. First of all, there's a huge cryptocurrency sell-off. Forbes has this article on it. It says, here's what the crypto bloodbath means for the stock market, and they're saying it's not good. They say the cryptocurrency market fell victim to a massive sell-off on Monday as several large exchanges either halted sales or announced layoffs, and with Bitcoin plunging to its lowest price in 18 months, experts warn that the ongoing bloodbath will only result in more selling pressure on stocks. The price of Bitcoin dropped 17% to below $23,000 on Monday, its lowest level since December 2020, after crypto lending company Celsius first sparked fears by suspending withdrawals due to extreme market conditions. Very bizarre move on behalf of that company. Now, I want to go deeper into this. I want to talk about, there's some issues with gold now as well, but I think, frankly, it looks like a scam, and I'm going to show you what that is. China's involved with it. It's very strange. Also, I want to talk about the World Economic Forum's new COVID pass that needs your blood. And also, I want to go deeper into what Trump is saying right now about the J6 committee. He had a 12-page report which goes into voter fraud as well. Folks, that said, we're going to jump over to Epic TV for this because there's a lot we can't talk about on YouTube without getting banned. In fact, YouTube actually deleted our recent January 6 videos. So there's stuff we cannot talk about on YouTube. They will delete our videos as they just did. And so there's a lot of topics we cannot go into on YouTube. So join us on Epic TV now. We still have over an hour left on the show today. A lot to talk about still. Come over now. There's a free trial for you in the description below. Grab it. Come join us. Join the discussion. Before we jump over, though, I want to show you something real quick that, well, investigative journalists is saying that January 6th was an inside job. Let me show you this trailer. It's on Facts Matter.
This is something that the Democrats and some Republicans and federal agencies put together to entice, entrap really people who attended Trump's speech that day. Everyone is guilty, even if you were just walked inside the building for 5 minutes and out, you are treated basically the same as someone who maybe attacked a police officer. They also say, well, we charge this man with obstruction of an official proceeding, which has never been used in this way before. This is very dangerous, unprecedented territory. And to even use something like obstruction of an official proceeding, adding that felony to other misdemeanor cases, to turn someone into a convicted felon, simply because they were in a public building on January 6th. This is a total erosion of civil liberties.
All right, folks, again, that's exclusively on Epic TV. Come over, join us now. We'll see you there. All right, folks. I talked about cryptocurrency taking a big crash. A lot of people, I think this is a big blow